At first, I wasn't coping very well. I was stubborn. I was a teenager, and I wanted things the way I wanted them. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to go to the mall with my friends and be able to say, yes, I'm going to this party Saturday, and keep that commitment to my friends, but it was hard to do so. I was tired all the time, fatigued. I wasn't sleeping through the night. I lost my appetite. I lost about 25 pounds. I would wake up and literally there would be patches of hair on the pillow, and I'd have bald spots for weeks until it would grow back in patches and then other patches would fall out. I just cried every day. And at that point, it was like, okay, you either get busy figuring out what to do, what's going on, or you get busy dying. It's one or the other. And after a couple of visits to the rheumatologist, they said, yes, you have lupus.
Scientists interested in studying human disease are heavily dependent upon their collaborations with volunteers, people who have a given disease, perhaps people who have loved ones with a given disease, but who they themselves do not suffer from that disease. And in these collaborations, they need to know about their quality of life. They need to know about their experiences. They need blood samples and tissue samples to understand what molecular pathways are involved, what cellular processes may have broken down. All of that knowledge is used to develop new diagnostic tools, new therapies, new cures for human disease.
So clinical research, by definition, refers to patient-oriented research. It is including patients in some way, and there are many different kinds of clinical research, one of those being clinical trials.
Once a scientist has discovered a new potential drug to treat a disease and has proven in the laboratory that that drug works the way he or she thinks it does, the next step in bringing that potential drug to a patient is to undergo clinical trials.
So clinical trials are very carefully constructed studies where an intervention is being made. It is a test of either a drug or sometimes it's a test of a particular new device and see whether or not it benefits the population that you're studying.
Well, I got a call from my doctor and she said something great came up and I think this would be good for you. And she told me about a study, a clinical trial, and I said, okay, well, let me read it over, let me research it. And so she gave me the paperwork and I looked it over and we talked about it in depth. And I said, you know what? I feel hopeful again. Let's try it.
Clinical trials are broken down into 4 phases. First, we want to ensure that the drug is safe and doesn't harm anyone. Next, we want to prove that it actually works in that particular disease. In the 3rd phase of clinical trials, we prove that the new potential drug is more effective than current standards of care. And then finally, in the 4th phase of clinical trials, we demonstrate that that drug is effective in a very diverse group of patients. Once the process is complete and the drug has been approved for clinical use, we now have a new tool, a new therapy, a new means to improve the lives of patients suffering with disease.
So we started it about a year and a half ago, and in that year and a half, I've only been hospitalized 1 time. It's really helped me, and I'm very grateful for that.
As with any kind of clinical research, I believe very much in the power of education. And the more that patients understand their illness, the better they will do. Participation in a clinical trial gives them some empowerment that they're actually taking part in important kinds of research, and that's a very powerful thing.
Successful clinical research is dependent on a very diverse group of participants volunteering to be part of these clinical trials. People of different genders, of different ages, different ethnicities, and even different backgrounds all contribute various information to the scientists who are interested in studying that disease.
Oftentimes in trials, the people who are most affected by the disease are not the ones who are actually engaging in the clinical trial. So when the medications are approved and they're given to the people who are afflicted with the disease, they're oftentimes not working because these people, be it African Americans or women or older men, whatever the group could be, they weren't involved enough in the clinical trial. There wasn't enough representation. So me being a younger female, me being African American, I thought that it was my duty to try to get into a clinical trial.
If a patient with a disease or a healthy, unaffected volunteer wishes to get involved in a medical research project, their first step should be to talk with their physician. If they have the disease, they are likely undergoing treatment for that disease, and their physician is the best source of information to understand who's working in the space, who the experts are, where the cutting-edge research is being conducted for that particular disease. If they themselves don't have the disease and are not in contact with a physician who has that sort of information, the next best step is to look toward a local hospital system, an academic medical center, some other large academic research-oriented organization to look for experts there. Those sorts of organizations tend to be doing a lot of research in a lot of areas and are often a wealth of information for those interested in participating in medical research.
To be part of this research, or any research, is very gratifying. To know that I am helping to find a cure for diseases. It's such an easy thing to do. I only have to donate 3 or 4 vials of blood, and that goes directly to the labs where the research is being done. And then that's it. I'm done and I go home.
You're doing a great service to your community even if you're healthy, if you get involved in a clinical trial, if you have an issue and you get involved in a clinical trial. I think that you're doing a really good service to your community by doing that, because it's not only going to help you, it's going to help people in the future, and that's what's important.
In every musical composition, it's the combination of the notes and the lyric lines and the harmonies that make a piece complete. And it's the same with scientific research. Researchers need samples from everyone in order to give the scientists a full picture of how a disease manifests and what they need to do to find a cure.